Every country's gold reserve is significant for that country's currency, and it's owned by the country to boost its economy, especially during a period of hyperinflation, much like what the world suffers from. And that is exactly why I decided to take a look at the top 10 countries with the largest gold reserves in the world. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Number 10. Netherlands, 612 tons. The Netherlands gold reserve has a long and interesting history. The Dutch central bank holds around 612 tons of gold, making it the 10th largest official gold reserve in the world. The Netherlands has a long tradition of using gold as a store of value, dating back to the 17th century, when the Dutch Republic emerged as a major economic power. During this period, the Dutch used gold coins as a medium of exchange, which helped to establish the country's reputation as a financial center. The Dutch government began building up its gold reserves in the early 20th century to maintain financial stability and ensure its ability to back its currency with a valuable commodity. Overall, the Netherlands gold reserve represents a key part of the country's financial history and reflects its long-standing commitment to maintaining financial stability and the value of its currency. Number 9. India, 686 tons. India's gold reserve has a rich and complex history. India is one of the largest consumers and importers of gold in the world, and its gold reserve has played a crucial role in the country's economic and cultural development. Historically, gold has been an integral part of India's culture and society. India's love for gold is reflected in its high demand for the precious metal, with the country importing significant amounts of gold each year. India's official gold reserve is held by the Reserve Bank of India, RBI. The RBI began acquiring gold reserves in the early 1950s to maintain the value of the Indian rupee and secure the country's financial stability. In today's world, the reserve continues to play a crucial role in India's economy, helping to maintain the value of the Indian rupee and serving as a hedge against economic and financial risk. Number 8. Japan, 765 tons. Japan's gold reserve has an interesting and complex history, which dates back to the country's hitting of that like button just like you should if you haven't done so already. But no, it rather dates back to the country's rapid industrialization and modernization in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In 1868, Japan began a period of rapid modernization, which led to significant economic growth and industrialization. Hence, the country's demand for gold increased, and Japan began importing large amounts of gold from other countries. After the Second World War, Japan's gold reserves became a key issue in negotiations with the Allied powers, but were limited by the US to prevent Japan from investing in its military. Over time, Japan's gold reserves have fluctuated due to changes in global economic conditions. Today, Japan is one of the largest holders of gold reserves in the world, with over 765 tons of gold in its reserves. The country's gold reserves are managed by the Bank of Japan, which uses them to stabilize the value of the yen and to ensure the stability of the country's financial system. Number 7. Switzerland, 1,000 tons. Switzerland's gold reserve is one of the largest in the world, and its history dates back to the country's long tradition of banking and neutrality. In the early 20th century, Switzerland became a major center of the global gold trade, with banks and other financial institutions storing large amounts of gold for clients from around the world. As a result, Switzerland began to accumulate significant gold reserves as a means of protecting the value of its currency and ensuring financial stability. During World War II, Switzerland remained neutral, but its gold reserves became a target for both the Axis and Allied powers. Today, Switzerland's gold reserves are managed by the Swiss National Bank, which holds over 1,000 tons of gold in its reserves. The country's gold reserves are viewed as a symbol of its financial stability and independence, and they're often used as collateral for loans and other financial transactions. Number 6. China, 1,950 tons. China's gold reserve has a complex and often secretive history, but it's generally believed to have originated in the 1949 revolution that brought the Communist Party to power. After the revolution, the new government began to accumulate gold as a means of establishing economic stability and independence. However, during the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s and 70s, much of China's gold was confiscated or sold off to other countries, and the country's gold reserves remained relatively low. In the 1980s, China began to modernize its economy and open up to the rest of the world. As part of this process, the government began to rebuild its gold reserves, largely by importing gold from abroad. In recent years, China has become increasingly focused on building up its gold reserves as a means of diversifying its foreign reserves and reducing its dependence on the US dollar. Number 5. Russia, 2,300 tons. Russia's gold reserve has a long and complicated history and dates back to the Soviet Union, during which era gold was viewed as an important symbol of economic and military power, and the government began to accumulate large amounts of gold as a means of asserting its dominance on the global stage. However, in the 1990s, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia's gold reserves were severely depleted as the government sold off much of its gold to finance its transition to a market-based economy. In the early 2000s, Russia began to rebuild its gold reserves, largely as a means of protecting its economy from external shocks. In today's world, Russia's gold reserve has become an important tool of its foreign policy as the country seeks to challenge the dominance of the US dollar and build up its geopolitical influence. Number 4. France, 2,440 tons. France's gold reserve dates back to the early days of the French monarchy, where, during the Middle Ages, the King of France began to smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. But no, on the more serious side of things, all of the kings began to accumulate gold as a means of financing their military campaigns and asserting their authority over their rivals. As France grew in power and influence, so too did its gold reserves. During the 19th century, France's gold reserves were further expanded as the country became a major center of finance and commerce, a time when the franc was one of the world's most important currencies. However, the two world wars took a heavy toll on France's gold reserves, and much of the country's gold was either confiscated or sold off to finance the war effort. Following World War II, France began to rebuild its gold reserve, which today is managed by the Banque de France, an important historic symbol of France and its place in the global financial system. Number 3. Italy, 2,450 tons. Italy's gold reserve dates back to ancient times, but the modern side of things began in the aftermath of the Second World War. During the war, Italy's gold reserves were seized by the Nazis and transported to Germany, leaving the country virtually bankrupt. In the years following the war, the Italian government worked to rebuild its economy and its gold reserves, and by the 1960s, Italy had become one of the largest holders of gold in the world. And ever since, Italy's gold reserves have fluctuated in response to changes in the global economy. Today, Italy's gold reserve is managed by the Bank of Italy. And while Italy's gold reserves are no longer as central to the country's economic and financial stability as they once were, they remain an important symbol of Italy's history and its role in the global economy. Number 2. Germany, 3,360 tons. Germany's rich history connected to the gold reserves dates back to the days when Germany was a global economic and military power. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, Germany's gold reserves grew significantly as the country became a major center of industry, finance, and commerce. And when the First World War broke out, the gold reserves played an important role in the events to come. However, following the Second World War, Germany's gold reserves were severely depleted, and the country was left in a state of economic and political turmoil. Today, Germany's gold reserve is managed by the Deutsche Bundesbank, which, in today's world, is used to keep and expand the country's position as one of the world's largest economic powerhouses in the world. Number 1. United States, 8,130 tons. The earliest days of the United States' existence are also the period when the country's rich gold reserve history started. In the late 18th century, the United States established a bimetallic standard, which allowed both gold and silver to be used as a legal tender. However, by the mid-19th century, gold had emerged as the dominant form of currency, and the country's gold reserves began to grow. In 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued an executive order requiring all U.S. citizens to turn in their gold coins and bars in exchange for paper money to shore up the country's struggling economy. This led to the creation of the United States' first gold reserve, which was held by the Federal Reserve System, with the U.S. Treasury Department taking over things in today's world. despite the gold reserves not being as central to the country's economic and financial stability, and rather a symbol of the country's rich history in this field. See you in the next video.